Hey guys, I'm Valiant. So today I'm going to be sharing with you a Pulverize leveling guide. This is a build I use for leveling. There's a lot of benefits of leveling as Pulverize. Firstly, you don't need any aspects and it still works. It's AoE. Once you do get the shockwave aspect, the build will snowball and carry you into the mid to late game. Also, the mid to late game gear for this build is way easier to get. And the benefits of this build specifically is it focuses on your resource to make Pulverize spammable, while in turn keeping your damage as high as possible. No uniques are required. For the abilities, I'm going to be using Trample. This is a form of movement, and it gives you Unstoppable, and it gives you Spirit back on cooldown. The next ability is Earthen Bulwark. This is another Unstoppable ability, and it gives you a shield to increase your survivability. Poison Creeper is useful for many reasons. Firstly, it CCs, which in turn gives you Spirit back, and it increases your critical strike chance as well. For the ultimate, I'm using Cataclysm. It's just my go-to for Druid ultimates. It also applies Vulnerable, which is very useful before you get glyphs, or if you're not using the basic attack that applies it. For basic attack, we are using Earth Spike. It's just our spirit generator. And then our main ability of the build, Pulverize. The goal is to make it so you could use this non-stop. For aspects, the helm we're going to be using is Vasili's Prayer. Before you get this helm, you're going to need to use the aspect of Earth Sign Horror to make Pulverize an Earth skill as well. For the chest, if you don't have Insatiable Fury, you're going to want to use the aspect of Quicksand. Damage from Earth skills slow enemies hit by 45%, which increases your damage because your damage is increased by crowd control. For the gloves, I was just testing this aspect. It turns out it's actually not that good. Instead, I would use Earth Sign Horror to make your Pulverize a Earth skill to get the benefit of all the extra damage and crowd control. For the pants, I'm using Disobedience, which increases your armor. For the boots, I'm using Ballistic, which increases your Earth skills by 2 rank. And on the two-hander, this is important. You're going to want to use the Shockwave aspect. Instead of it doing 100% extra damage, it's going to double and do 200% damage. This is the main ability of this build, so it's necessary. And once you get this aspect, it's game changing. This build will just carry you until the late game. For the amulet, I'm using the accelerating aspect. This is to increase how many times I could use my core ability. And one of the biggest aspects for this build is the Umbral aspect. I wasn't lucky enough to find a good one for a while, but once you get +4 resource, you're pretty much going to be topped off on spirit at all times, which makes this build crazy good. And it also makes it that you can change your key passive to something else to increase the damage. And then finally, for our last ring, I'm using Crash Stone. Her skills deal 40% more critical strike damage to crowd controlled, which after you hit anything, it should be crowd controlled. They're going to do more damage. For our basic skill, I'm using Earth Spike and Enhanced Earth Spike. You could also use Storm Strike or a different basic ability that applies vulnerability. For the core skills, you're going to put 5 points into Pulverize, 1 point into Enhanced and Raging Pulverize, 1 point into Heart of the Wild, 3 points into Wild Impulses, and 3 points into Abundance, and 3 points into Predatory Instinct. In the defensive skills, I put 1 point into Earthen Bulwark and Enhanced Earthen Bulwark. In companion skills, I put 3 points into Nature's Reach, 1 point into Poison Creeper, and 1 point into Enhanced and Brutal Poison Creeper. For the RAS skills, I put 3 points into Crushing Earth, 3 points into Safeguard, and 3 points into Stone Guard, 1 point into Trample, Enhanced, and Savage Trample. And then once you get the unique chest, and if you're still using this build, you're going to want to use Provocation. It's another source of guaranteed overpower damage. For the ultimate skills, 1 point into Defiance, 3 points into Natural Disaster, 3 points into Resonance, 3 points into Circle of Life. And then for the ultimate, I'm using Cataclysm. This is one of the only ways to apply vulnerability before using glyphs, and I prefer this solution. And then 1 point into Prime and Supreme Cataclysm. For the key passive, I use Ursine Strength. It's a buff to damage at almost all times. Gives you 20% additional maximum life. You deal 25% increased damage and 25% increased overpower damage. For the spirit boons, I'm using Wariness, Swooping Attacks, and Avian Wrath. You could also take the crit chance instead. It's just preference. I think the crit chance is better. I just prefer the attack speed. And then I take Energize. After you get to a good point with your resource generation from either gear or the aspects, you could move this if needed. Next, I'm using Obsidian Slam. Masochistic would be good as well. I'm going to show some gameplay video just so you get an idea of how the build works. For the Paragon board, I go up and to the right to take the damage. The first glyph is going to be Exploit. So we have another way to apply vulnerability besides our ultimate, or a different basic attack if you chose that route. And then for leveling, I highly suggest Ancestral Guidance for any build that needs Spirit, which is all builds almost, because at the beginning of the tree you're going to be able to get these nodes that give you Spirit on kill, which is very useful. And you're going to work your way over to the glyph, and pretty much whatever glyph you put here is going to be the first glyph you have to level, just because a lot of Druid glyphs require dexterity, and it's nearly impossible to get the dexterity you need unless you have the glyph leveled up. But I'm using Territorial, more damage to close enemies, and you're to grab all the bonus core skill damage as well. And we're to go up. The next board is going to be Earthen Devastation, and the glyph's going to be Werebear. Increases your damage while in Werebear form, and you gain damage reduction as well. Then to the right, the next board is Survival Instinct, and I'm using the Fang and Claw glyph at the moment. The glyphs move around as you level, and I'll have a full and complete endgame Paragon in the guide as well. Then you're going to move north to the Constricting Tendrils board, and I'm using Earth and Sky. Nature magic skills deal 10% increased damage to crowd controlled or vulnerable enemies. I still need to unlock these glyphs, but that's where the next points will be going. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate the support. I'll see you guys next time.